Hey everyone, this is Sena. Today we are looking at 19th century Istanbul, how a port capital at the meeting point of Europe and Asia modernized its streets, services, and everyday life without one big master plan. Today I'll cover where Istanbul is, its 19th century governance, how streets, ports, trams reshaped the city, the rise of suburbs and daily life, public health empires, a brief Europe comparison, and a final synthesis. Istanbul sits in today's Turkey where Europe and Asia meet. The city hugs the Bosphorus Strait with the Sea of Marmara to the south and a sheltered inlet called the Golden Horn cutting into the old city. In the 19th century, Istanbul was the capital of the Ottoman Empire. After the republic was founded, the capital moved to Ankara in 1923. Even after the move, Istanbul stayed the country's biggest city and main gateway. Founded as Byzantine, later Constantinople, and by the 1800s it's the Ottoman capital. 19th century Istanbul is highly mixed. Muslims, Greek Orthodox, Armenians, Jews, and European American families, especially around Galata-Pera. Population rises from roughly half a million to close to a million. These layers shape planning. Tighter street rules and services land first in Galata-Pera, while the old core modernizes more gradually. Before the 1800s, Istanbul mostly fixed problems after fires or epidemics. In the Ottoman Reform era, the Tanzimat, the state built tools to plan ahead. The city hall, Şehremaneti, took charge of streets, lighting, cleaning, and permits. The pilot in Galata-Pera, the sixth district municipality tested modern rules, standard street widths, stone paving, regular waste removal, and alignment lines that mark the future edge of a street so you can widen it over time. From then on, the city could act proactively, not just react. Here is how the city actually reshaped itself. Officials drew alignment plans that fixed where future street edges should be. After a fire, they used those drawings to widen lanes, cut small squares for access, and push for masonry on the main streets instead of wood. Permits then locked in basic rules like standard widths, curbs, and building heights. Change came step by step along priority corridors, not through a single grand redesign. Across the 19th century, the shoreline is rebuilt with engineered quays at Galata Eminönü and Tophane. Customs and warehouses sit right on the edge, so cargo is checked and moved quickly. The Galata Bridge ties both sides into one daily corridor, eventually carrying trams. Main streets bend toward the quays, and the waterfront becomes a lively belt of shops, cafes, and hotels. Modernization reached the ground through networks. Along the Golden Horn, the Bosphorus new quays concentrated docking, customs, and storage. Horse trams, later electric, stitched neighborhoods across the city's hills. Fixed rail on both shores created the first commuter pattern between center and suburbs. City services followed these same routes. Water, telegraph, and street lights were laid where movement was densest. Together, these corridors sped up how people, goods, and news moved every day. Rail stations seeded linear suburban belts. On the European side, Bakırköy and Yeşilköy grew. On the Asian side, Kadıköy, Göztepe, Erenköy, Bostancı filled with garden houses. Regular timetables created Istanbul's first commuting habit: into the center in the morning, back home in the evening, launching a new suburban lifestyle. By the late 19th century, Istanbul read as two urban worlds. On the historic peninsula, change stayed cautious, targeted widening near bazaars and ferry heads. with timber gradually replaced by masonry on key streets. Across the Golden Horn in Galata-Pera, stricter rules produce straighter blocks and continuous stone street fronts. Modernization was selective, bolder, where commerce and consulates clustered, gentler at the imperial core. Trade geography changes without disappearing. The Grand Bazaar keeps its wholesale role, but the improved quays and straighter main streets create a new boulevard culture in Galata-Pera. Shops use window displays, cafes and theaters line the route, and the hotels serve visitors and a growing tourist scene. People begin to stroll in the evenings, buy imported goods, and meet in cafes, while traditional bazaar networks still link the wider city. Public health becomes a planning job. The city paves and drains main roads, schedules cleaning, and adds lighting and policing. It moves slaughterhouses and some cemeteries to the edge to protect dense districts. New bylaws and inspections target water, waste, and massive street uses. The daily result is cleaner markets, safer nights, and fewer outbreaks, especially around the port. Instead of citywide redesign, chokes sped up small but decisive fixes. After big fires, officials cut diagonals through tight blocks, widened nodes, and chamfered corners so charts and later trams could turn. They left planned gaps as fire breaks and cleaned up awkward plots. After the 1894 quake, inspectors cleared hazards and pulled street fronts back to the line. These micro moves made streets safer, quicker, and healthier. Compared with its peers, Istanbul modernized more selectively. Paris and Vienna rebuilt whole districts. Barcelona imposed a new grid outside the walls. London led with infrastructure and carved some new streets. Istanbul focused on key corridors and nodes, kept most historic patterns, and pushed growth along rail lines into new suburbs. It is a lighter, incremental path to a modern city. When you ride a tram down a main street or take Marmara under the Bosphorus, you are moving along corridors first fixed in the 19th century. Quays that organized ships and customs now read as long public waterfronts. The villa suburbs seated by rail matured into dense, well-connected districts. The imperial core is conserved, while Beyoğlu still anchors shops and culture. Even today, big upgrades often follow crises, much like the post-fire replots of the 1800s. Here is our story in one frame. Along the Golden Horn, the city builds an engineered quays and links Eminönü to Galata with the Galata Bridge. A horse tram runs on the shore, while steam ferries knit the waterfront into daily life. Markets and cafes cluster by the water because goods are now taxed, stored, and loaded right on the edge instead of in back alleys. This is what we mean by corridor-led modernization. Istanbul speeds up flows by upgrading one continuous route, quay, bridge, and tram, rather than redrawing the whole city. If you think of Paris quays or Vienna's Ringstrasse, the pattern is similar, but Istanbul keeps its older fabric behind the main streets. The result is a capital that feels recognizably Ottoman yet is fully plugged into 19th century mobility and trade. Thank you all for listening.